We know there are some things that work, and the first of those that works is stemming the flow of firearms used to commit violent crimes.
We responded immediately when we saw those shootings with assault rifles that hit our college campuses in suburban counties, and it was the right thing to do. But the problem in America is the handgun, yet the demographics of the victims are black, brown, and poor. We have ignored it for far too long.
Let's talk about all of this, bringing our panel early. Trey Gowdy, former congressman from South Carolina. Harold Ford Jr., former Tennessee congressman, CEO of Empowerment and Inclusion Capital. And as mentioned before, a special panelist tonight, Jesse Waters, co-host of The Five, author of the new book, How I Saved the World. This is a rare event, Jesse.
It is. I'm feeling very special, and I will try not to ruin your show, Brett.
Thank you. Trey, let's start with you. All this talk about guns and gun reform at the White House. Your thoughts about how the White House is handling this, how President Biden is talking about this violence across the country?
Well, you know, Brett, gun prosecutions went down under President Obama with Vice President Biden right there beside him. I mean, I want your viewers to focus on the group that constantly calls for more gun laws. Gun prosecutions went down when they were in office. So what we know is defunding the police doesn't work. This bond reform doesn't work. These so-called progressive prosecutors don't work. I got a really crazy novel idea. How about actually enforce? You'd be shocked, Brett, at the gun laws we currently have, but they don't do any good if the federal prosecutors aren't actually enforcing them. So how about we start there?
Harold, there does seem to be a split between some Democrats and how they talk about this and what the White House is kind of messaging on this.
Well, first off, congrats to Jesse on the book, and thanks for having me on. I don't think that there's as much of a gap as we think. The leader of the Democratic Party has never been for defunding the police. He convened a group of law enforcement officials to talk candidly, to talk seriously and broadly about how to address this issue. The Democratic nominee in the largest city in the country that has witnessed and experienced some of the great crime reductions over the many years, and I might add, I would agree with Trey, gun prosecution should go back up, but during the Biden administration, the Obama administration, crime and violent crime rates were down in a lot of cities, but they're going up now, and it calls for a different set of reactions. So I was encouraged by this meeting. I'm encouraged by even the willingness to listen to some of the bail reform changes that must happen. I think there were some who were well-intentioned that wanted bail reform, but it's not working. It's putting criminals and putting violent people back out on the street. There has to be a better way to achieve what some of those who wanted bail reform to achieve without endangering our communities as we certainly have. And finally, we should go after ghost guns. They're right about that, and I hope they continue that pursuit.
You know, we just saw the report from Matt Finn, the Chicago police superintendent, talking about the disregard for police on the streets. Take a listen.
There's no regard for law enforcement's presence at these scenes to bring them to justice. They will fire a weapon at law enforcement or at others for what appears to be no apparent reason.
Jesse, your thoughts?
Well, the country's been too permissive when it comes to all of these precincts in liberal America. The gun issue is a dodge. We have the strictest gun laws in these cities, so it's really just about enforcement. If you're a gangbanger, Brett, and you get popped for illegal possession of a firearm, you could be booked out same day, back on the street. And when it is time for sentencing, if a liberal DA only recommends 1 year instead of the 3 to 7, and the public defender says, okay, let's just go 10 days, liberal judge is just going to slice it in half and give him 6 months. So he's paroled in 6 months, back out squeezing the trigger, and comes into contact with the law enforcement that's under siege by liberal activists. So unless we're not talking about incarceration and prosecution, I don't believe this is a serious issue with the Democrats. Joe Biden's doing great on COVID, big numbers in terms of approval, but with crime and the border, he's in his 30s. and you add critical race theory to that, you add gas prices to that, eventually the COVID thing is going to become not an issue anymore. And he's got some stuff that's just really just right there at the edge waiting to take him down. So he needs to fix this quickly, but I don't see it happening.
You know, Trey, some media organizations at the beginning of, as we were covering it here on Fox, said, you know, we were blowing it up out of proportion, that this really wasn't, crime wasn't an issue across the country. And now there's this meeting at the White House. Obviously, it's risen to the level. Politically, how does that fall, you know, as we get closer and closer to 2022?
Well, look, I mean, there are lots of folks on the Democrat side, Harold Ford included, that are really smart when it comes to politics. I mean, you look at Jim Clyburn and others, they want to hold on to the House, and they know that if the economy's okay and COVID's okay, public safety is the #1 function of government. So if you can't do that, and look, let's be fair, most of this crime is state and local. But when you have Democrat members of Congress talking about the police the way Rashida Tlaib and Omar and AOC talk about the cops, then it's going to trickle into the federal system. He gets to pick U.S. attorneys. Let's pick some that actually believe in putting people, violent offenders, in prison. That'd be a great place to start. Quit with the progressive prosecutors. Pick U.S. attorneys that actually believe in enforcing gun laws.
All right, panel, we'll see you at the bottom of the show. And, you know, we'll do another book tease down there, too, Jesse.
Thank you.
All right.